Okay. Today's Daf Be'ezras Hashem is Daf Lamed Hey, and we're going to begin from Daf Lamed Dalid Amid Beis, about 4 lines from the top. Very short Daf. The Gemara asks a question. Boy Minei Rav Chia bar Ovin Mirava. Rav Chia bar Ovin asked a question from Rava. A man says to his friend, Ki kari, my loaf of bread, notice the yud there, olecha should be asr on you. Now I colored it in 2 different colors because what did he stress? Is he stressing that it's my loaf of bread? That's asr, or the point of his statement is olecha, it should be asr to you. So what's more important, the kikari or olecha? Because what would be the difference? He gave it over to his friend as a gift. So it's no longer my bread. I'm giving it to you as a gift. Are you still usher on that piece of bread? So that's the question. He was madar the bread, the loaf of bread, while it was in his possession. This loaf of bread is my bread. It's usher on you. Then he goes ahead and gives it to him as a present, as a gift. Well, now it's not his loaf of bread anymore. So Mao, Kikari Amaloi, did he say it's my loaf of bread? Ki isi say as long as he still owned it, the Madir still owned it. So then who'd usher? Then you're usher on it. Or Dilmar or maybe he said, Olecha, it's usher to you no matter what. Amalei, Ilave, Shavise Hegdish. To you, I made a Hegdish no matter who the owner is. The point is that it should always be usher to you, even if I would gift it to you as a matana, as a gift. So that's the Gemara's question. On this statement, when somebody says, Kikari Alecha. So Rava answered, Rav Chia bar Oven, Pshita, I think it's pretty simple. The Afagav, even though the Yahavaleh b'matana, even though you gifted it to your friend, so it's no longer your bread, Asr, he's still prohibited from benefiting from that bread. So the Gemara asks the question, then why did he say my bread? Why couldn't he hold the loaf of bread up and say, this bread should be also to you? What did he want to exclude? And that's not part of the neder. The fact that he said, my bread is also to you, what is that trying to exclude? What do it mean? Lav la puki, wouldn't that exclude the igam v'minei mignav? That if the other person that he wants to aser, right? The mudar, right? That's the person that you're asering, would like to steal it from you. If he steals it from you, he would not be prohibited on that object. And certainly if you give it to him as a gift. So doesn't that what it means? Kikari, my bread? Amalei. So Rava answered, Loi, not so. The Azmene Allah. That means that if he invited, for example, Reuven is the Madir, and Shimon is the Mudar, and Reuven says to Shimon, this bread should be also to you. First, he invited him over to his house. Come eat with me this bread. Then he got angry at Shimon and says, this bread, my bread, is also to you. What he's trying to say is, as long as you didn't bite into the bread and take ownership of the bread, as long as it's my bread, I want to answer it to you. So originally, I invited you that you can partake of this bread, but as long as you did not yet partake of the bread, it's still considered to be my bread, and therefore I still have the right to answer you. Okay, so hi, Lewis, we just began. So we just answered the question. The question was, if a man says to his friend, Reuven will always call the Madir, and Shimon is the Mudar. Reuven says to Shimon, my bread should be also to you. So my bread should be also to you. You would think that as long as it's my bread, it's also to you. But if I gift it to you, it should be mutter. So he asked the question, what happens if you gift it to the mudar, to Shimon? If Reuven would give it as a gift, so it's no longer Reuven's bread, it still remains aser. But I have to point out, when could it be mutter? If Reuven sells the bread to another third party. Let's say he sells it to Levi, and Levi gives it to Shimon. So when Shimon received it, it was no longer Reuven's bread. It was in Levi's bread. Then, in that case, since it was like like you kashered the money, you laundered the money. You laundered it through Levi, so then Shimon could partake in the bread. But if it was directly given to Shimon, then it's aser. Now we begin Daf Lamed Hey. Amar Aleph. Esvei, so they asked the question against Rava. Amalai, we have a brisa that says a situation. Somebody says to his friend, Hash'ileni parascha, please lend me your ox, your cow. Amalai, he said to him that koinen pari shani kani lecha. I want this cow that I have should be usher to you. In other words, I don't want to lend it to you. Basically, he's trying to say, this is my only cow. And not only that, all my possessions should be usher to you. Im yesh li para elazu. Oh, if I don't have only this para. In other words, that if I have more than one para, then all my possessions should be usher to you, including this para. So basically, he's trying to make a statement that he only owns this para. And he's so confident that, you're my friend, I would lend it to you, but it's my only cow. And I would answer and I don't want to do this, I will answer everything that I own on you if you could find another cow that I own. Hashileni kardumcha. Another example, he said, lend me your spade. Amaloi, koinim kardim sheyeshli shani koni. That this is my only spade. Nechasai, and it should be also to you. Nechasai alai, my nechasim should be also to you. In yeshli kardim elazeh, if I don't have only this kardim, it means that I have other spades. Basically, he's trying to say that if I do have other spades, and if I do have another cow, then this cow should be aser. And then we find that he does have other cows and other spades. So basically, this particular cow in question is now aser. So Reuven made his cow aser on Shimon. Okay, let's say Reuven made his cow aser on Shimon. So b'chayav, as long as Reuven is alive, aser, the cow remains aser on Shimon because it's Reuven's cow. Mace, let's say Reuven died, so he doesn't own a cow anymore. He's dead. Or he gifted it over to Shimon. Then Shimon is mutter to use it. So we see that if Reuven directly gives it over to Shimon, he can directly benefit from it. So this is a question against Rava, who said even if you gave it by matana, it would be aser. And says the Gemara, Amar Abchia Berei Derav Ika answered, Shenitnu loy al yedei acher. Like I explained to you, that even that if it was gifted al yedei acher, meaning that it wasn't Reuven that gave it to Shimon, it was Reuven gave it to Levi, who gave it to Shimon, then it becomes kosher and Shimon can benefit from it. And Amar Ravashi said, Amar Ravashi, Deikanami, I can prove it to you from the Brisa. The Ketani, the Brisa says, Shenitnaloi. It was gifted to Shimon. Not that the Like Ketani doesn't say Shenasanaloi. It was given to him. You see, we are always of the opinion, by the way, that the Gemara was written without punctuation, without nukudos. And therefore, here, according to, if you don't have nukudos in the Gemara, so it sounds like, it says Shin Nun Taf Nun Hey, it sounds like Shenos Nolai, that Reuven gave it to Shimon. Ravashi comes to tell you that he has a tradition in the Brisa that the punctuation should be read Shenit Nolai, that it was given to Shimon, but not by Reuven, but rather by a third party called Levi. So that's how even the Nukudos of the Gemara was already a tradition how to punctuate the Gemara. And that's how Rav Ashi proved that this Brisa is not a question against Rava. New Gemara. Boyamene Rav Nachman. Rav asked the question from Rav Nachman. Yesh me'ila b'kainamais oiloi. That's a very good question. We know, how do you make a loaf of bread aser? You can say that this loaf of bread should be aser. But you could also say that this loaf of bread should be aser like a carbon. What do you mean by that? It should be aser like a carbon, which means that, okay, that I'm not going to eat the bread. But I don't mean that it should be holy like a carbon. I just want it to be aser like a carbon. Or can you say that there is a kedusha on this bread such that if you misuse the bread, it's a big avera. It's a big thing. You chayev a korban me'ilah. The Torah says if you accidentally use something that belongs to hegdish, you have to bring a korban. So the question is, in the neder sense, if a person said, my loaf of bread should be like a korban, does he mean that it now has a kedusha to it, and that if you misuse it, you have to bring a korban me'ilah or not? Yesh me'ilah b'koin nomais or not? So this was Rava's question to Rav Nachman. Amalei. So Rava said, I have a proof from our Mishnah that it does indeed become holy. Why? Because we said that when the Tanisia, we learned in our Mishnah that the person who lost the object, it got it returned by somebody who he was not permitted to benefit from. So if he wants to give a reward and the other person said, you keep the reward, what should he do with the money of the reward? He's not allowed to keep it because it turns out he's benefiting from somebody who's usher. So let's say Shimon wants to give a reward for Reuven, the Madir. The Gemara and Reuven says keep it. So Shimon, the Mishnah says, should not keep the reward, but he should the reward money that he would have given to Reuven. But what should he do? Donate it. Write a check for hegdish. If the place is customary to reward the person that finds your lost item, tipo hano lehegdish, then don't keep the money, but make a donation to hegdish. But normally, when the Gemara wants to say that you can't benefit from something, when the Mishnayos want to say that, they say throw it into the Yam HaMelech. But here it says write a hanoah to hegdish, write a check to hegdish. Lememra. This comes to imply ki hegdish, that when you usher on something, it automatically maintains like a holiness on it. Ma hegdish yesh by me'ilah. Just like hegdish, if you violate and misuse it, you have to bring a korban me'ilah. Avkoinomos, if you make a neder that something should be also like a korban, yesh me'ilah, there is considered me'ilah over there, and therefore you would violate the me'ilah because it has a din of holiness to it. So that seems to prove that from our Mishnah. And our Mishnah was talking about a case where the guy said, I'm also to you like a korban. So the Gemara says kitanoi. Actually, it's a machlekes tanoim. Here's the case, simple case. Koin and kikar zeh hegdish. He said, this loaf of bread should be aser like hegdish. So it's not like he's donating it to hegdish. He's just saying it should be aser like hegdish. Va'achala, and then he ate the bread. Bein hu, bein chaveru, whether he did it by him or his friend did it. Moel, they misused hegdish, and they're chayav to bring a korban as an atonement. Lefichach, therefore, yesh lo pidyon. There's a way to transfer the kedusha on this bread onto money. You can transfer it around because you assered it on everybody, because you said this should be a holy bread. Kikar said, Allah hegdish. If you said this kikar should be only usher to me as hegdish, but you're only usher, but everybody else could eat that bread. V'achala, and then you ate it. Hu mal, then you're chayav to bring a korban me'ilah. Your friend is not obligated to be me'ilah. Obviously, it's not also to him. You can't transfer the kedusha onto money because only a type of hegdish that's also for everybody can be transferred around onto money, onto other objects. But if it's only a neder prati, which means for just one person, to hegdish for one person, then there's no concept of transferring the kedusha away from the bread. These are words of Rav Meir. Right away, you see, according to Rav Meir, that there is possible that when you make something and say this bread should be like usher to me, like hegdish, it has a din me'ilah, and therefore, if you do violate the neder, you have to bring a korban. Chachamim says no, that's not donating. If you donate it to hegdish, yes, then it becomes hegdish. Then there's me'ilah. But just saying something is usher like hegdish is not make it hegdish. Benkach loy mal. Whether you aser it on everybody or whether you aser it on yourself, loy mal. There's no iser me'ilah. It's not like hegdish. By nedarim, there's no such a thing of a chayav, a korban me'ilah. So that takes care of that. That's the opinion of the Chachamim. But our Mishnah seemed to agree with Rav Meir that there is a possibility, because our Mishnah said donate the money to hegdish. So it seems that our Mishnah goes according to Rav Meir. Amalei Rav Acha Bereder of Avya Rav Ashi. Rav Acha said to Rav Ashi, what happens is Kikari Alecha. Same case. My bread should be also to you. Okay? And you hold like Reb Meir, by the way, that there is Me'ilah. He said, my bread should be also to a carbon to you, okay? Reuven says to Shimon, my bread should be also like a carbon to you, Shimon. And then he gifted it to Shimon as a gift. Mi'mal, who violated the Me'ilah, the misuse of Hegdish. Limol Noisin, is it Reuven who's the giver? So to violated, because he's giving it to Shimon, Holai Asirale. He didn't do anything asr. This bread is not asr to Reuven. It's only asr. Reuven actually made the neder, but the neder subject is Shimon. Shimon is the one that's asr to it. So therefore, Reuven can't be the one that's chayiv a carbon me'ilah. Limor makabel, but why should Shimon be required to bring a carbon me'ilah? Yachalami, he could say, Dama hatera be'isi. You're giving it to me, and I only want to get something if it's permitted, if I don't violate an avera. Isura loy be'isi, but I don't want to accept something that's a violation of an avera. And since you're forcing this to me, you see, every me'ilah you're violating by mistake. But here, it's been given to you. So he could always say that I wouldn't accept it if I know there's a violation of me'ilah. Amalei, so Rav Ashi says, so who violates the me'ilah? Mekabel mo'el. Yes, Shimon could violate the carbon me'ilah, but only likashe yoitzi, when he uses it or spends it. Shekol hamoitzi ma'ois hegdish l'chulin. If someone takes out hegdish money and uses it for chulin, let's say you had money of hegdish, right, that you're supposed to donate this money to the Beis Hamikdash, and you bought something with it that's non-hegdish, so then you violate and you're obligated to bring a carbon me'ilah, because kisava shachulin hu moil. Just like if you spend the money of hegdish and you're thinking it's secular, it's non-hegdish money, you get yichayev a carbon me'ilah. Avzeh moil. So the acceptor of the gift, if they start using the gift, then if he started biting into the bread and eating the bread, that's when he's chayev to bring the carbon me'ilah. Okay, we go to Lamed Hey Amud Beis. Okay, nice Mishnah. The Mishnah says, okay, let's say Reuven made a neder that whatever he does should be usher on Shimon. So Shimon cannot benefit from Reuven. So the Mishnah says Reuven can do a few things for Shimon, and that's not called that Shimon benefited, because it's a mitzvah that he's doing on behalf of Reuven, of Shimon, but Shimon is not benefiting because mitzvahs is not considered, if you do a mitzvah on behalf of somebody else, it's not considered that they benefited physically. So therefore, v'toyrem es trumasi. Reuven could take off truma on behalf of Shimon's produce, not that Shimon made him a messenger, that Shimon made Reuven a messenger. Then Reuven actually is benefiting Shimon, but giving a benefit to Shimon. But what the point is that if Shimon said, I want somebody to take truma for my produce. I have this produce, and I want somebody to do it on my behalf. And Reuven steps up to the plate and does it, takes off his truma or his maestros, ledatoi, according to his, we are aware that he wants this to be done. That's also okay. It's not a violation of the neder. What happens? Reuven is the kohen in the Beis Hamikdash, and Shimon is coming to bring some karbonos. So the Mishnah says Reuven can be the kohen, and it's not a violation of the neder, even though Shimon's not supposed to benefit from Reuven, but still he can be the kohen. Ubakar of all of kine zovim, kine zovis, kine yoldis, chatois v'ashomis. The Mishnah gives an example of karbonos that Reuven can sacrifice on behalf of Shimon and act as the kohen. Now, what's the examples that the Mishnah uses are karbonos that are not really are obligatory karbonos, but they have a benefit to it. And the benefit is that once these people bring this karbonos, let's say someone that gave birth, somebody who was a zav or zava, once they bring these karbonos, it's not like they're getting an atonement, but the point is, once they bring that karbonos, they are permitted to eat karbonos. You see, as you could go to the mikvah from today to tomorrow, and you could have the sprinkling of waters on you, but if you don't have, if you're required to bring the carbon, you cannot eat kachim, you can't eat carbon pesach. So the kohen over here can be makar of these karbonos, which allows the person to start to benefit from eating karbonos, to eat karbonos. So Reuven could makriv these karbonis on behalf of Shimon, act as the kohen. Even though now Shimon benefits, he could start eating karbonis. He's now permitted to eat sacrifices. Still, that's a side benefit, and therefore that's not considered as if Shimon benefited from Reuven. Another thing, Reuven umalam could teach Shimon umalam de midrash. He could teach him brises, halachas like halacha l'moshe masinais, va'agodes, the Gemara that teaches you musar, and he teaches it for free because that's what you're supposed to do. Shimon is benefiting by enjoying the learning. That's mitzvahs lav lehenis. You can't. It's not considered enjoyment if you're just learning. Reuven cannot teach Shimon chumash because in those days to teach chumash, if someone, let's say, was Baal Tshuva and was trying to catch up or something like that, they would actually pay the teacher. So therefore, if Reuven does it for free, then he should not do it to Shimon because Shimon would benefit by not having to pay the fee to Reuven for teaching him chumash. Avo, but Malamedhu, Reuven can now teach as Barnabas b'noisav mikra. Reuven could teach Shimon's children chumash. Now, although Shimon would have to, if Reuven wouldn't teach them chumash, Shimon would have to hire somebody to teach them chumash, and therefore. By derivation, by Reuven acting as the teacher, Shimon is saving money. But that's not called a direct benefit. And therefore, Reuven could teach the sons, and here the Mishnah says the daughters also. In those days, the daughters learned Chumash. Reuven could teach the daughters of, and the sons of Shimon, Chumash, even though it's Shimon's obligations. The Gemara asked this question. You just learned in the Mishnah that the Reuven could act as the kohen on behalf of Shimon. Ibailu, let's ask a question. Hani kahani, the kahanim that serve in the base of Migdash, shlichei de don huava, when they do their job, who's sending them to do their jobs? Is it us, the person that's obligated to bring the carbon? So I'm making the kohen as my messenger. Or shlichei de shmaya, or are they messengers of heaven? God put them at that job, and they're God's messengers. What would be the difference? If I make a neder, if Shimon made a neder not to benefit from kohen Reuven, can he use Reuven as his kohen? If you say that they are shluchim, he's benefiting from Reuven, it's aser. But if you tell me that every kohen that working in the base of Migdash is Hashem made him is one sending him to the job, so it's not the one bringing the carbon, Shari, then Shimon would be permitted to have Reuven act as his kohen. So what's the din? So the Gemara says we have an obvious case from our Mishnah. Tashma, come in here. Now we learned in the Mishnah, Makrav Kinizavim, that Reuven can act as a kohen as Reuven can act as the kohen on behalf of Shimon. If you're going to say that they're our shluchim, then by that logic, then Shimon actually is benefiting from Reuven. He's making Reuven his messenger to be his kohen. So it must be the shluchei deshmaya, that any kohen is a messenger of heaven. He's not working for the person bringing the carbon. So the Gemara asks back, if that's the case, why does our Mishnah give you like weird examples? Lislate makrav olav karbonis. The Mishnah should have said that he could be makrav karbonis on behalf. Any carbon that you bring, a neder, any carbon that you can bring, he can act as the kohen. Why does it specifically say these karbonis? Ella, it must be V'chusrei kapara shani. The reason only these kaparas are permitted is because these karbonis are not bringing. You're not bringing it as a sacrifice. It's just an enabling type of carbon. As I mentioned it when we learned the Mishnah, these karbonis examples mentioned in the Mishnah of kinei zav and zades yaldes are enabling the person that brings the carbon to be able to eat kachim. So there's a benefit for it. So therefore. And so what? So it should be aser. But the answer is, for these type of karbonos, you don't need shlichus. In other words, the person himself who's obligated who wants to eat these karbonos, who wants to bring these karbonos, let's say the yoledis or the zav, he doesn't have to, somebody could bring it on his behalf without his knowledge. The Rabbi Yochanan said, Hakol tzrichin das. Every time you bring a carbon, you have to be aware that you're bringing a carbon, or you made a messenger to do it on your behalf. Chutz mi b'chusrei kapara. Those carbonas that are just carbonas to enable you to eat kachem, you could have somebody else bringing it on your behalf, and even you need to make a mashliach or anything like that. You still, once the carbon is brought on your behalf and you didn't even make them the messenger, you're now permitted to have you're permitted to eat kachem. Shari odom maybe carbon albonov albanoisov haktanim. Let's say you have a young boy, a young girl, they're zavim, right? They're not allowed to eat kachem as long as they didn't bring the carbon. So a father can bring on behalf of his kids, the small kids, their carbonas of zav, kine zav, the birds of zav. And that allows the kids to eat the carbon pesach, right? Shenema, the pasuk says, Zoyis Torah hazav ben gadol ben katan. This is the law of a zav. Doesn't matter. Everybody, even a small kid, is obligated to bring this carbon. Who's going to bring the carbon on behalf of the kid? His father. And obviously, the kid is not making his father the shliach. The father's bringing without the das of the kid. So we see these type of carbonos are unique. They don't need a messenger at all. You don't even need to make any kind of messenger. That's why the Mishnah uses these examples. These examples specifically. So Reuven could act as bring these carbonos on behalf of Shimon, because Shimon does not have to make him a messenger. But other carbonos, such as if you're bringing a regular carbon chatas or regular carbon neder, since Shimon would have to make Reuven his shliach, then Reuven would not be permitted to act as the Kohen. So it could be that our Mishnah holds that the Kohen normally is shluchei dedan. You have to make him a shliach. So the Gemara just wants to ask a side point question on Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan, I understand that a mechusrei kapara, a zav carbon, we see that a father could bring the carbon on behalf of his child. But where do you find by Yoledes you could bring the carbon on behalf of a child? This is the story of a lady that gives birth. And you're trying to tell me that it's not only an adult lady that gives birth, but even if it's a man married a katana, a man married a 3-year-old girl, and she's required, and she gave birth, he would have to bring a carbon on her behalf. And, obviously his wife is a katana. She didn't make him a shliach. But that's impossible, because ben katana ben gedola, katana bas lady, can a young girl be somebody who's capable of giving birth? The 3 women, we require them to use birth control. 3 types of women: katana, ubu beres, manika. A katana, a girl who's under 12, or she's pregnant, or a girl who's nursing, a lady who's nursing. Katana, we want them to use birth control, shemetis abe v'tamas, because maybe she will become pregnant, and if she gives birth, she's going to die. So a katana cannot give birth to a child. So therefore, what is the Torah talking about? Demonstrating that you don't need shlichus for the carbonos of a lady that gives birth. Only adult ladies give birth. So where do you see that? Answers the Gemara, bein pikachas bein shoita. Whether it's a normal, a sane woman, or insane woman. That insane woman, if the lady is insane and she gave birth, her husband is required to bring her carbonos on her behalf, even though she's so insane she can't make him a shliach. But the Torah says, since these type of carbonos are enabling carbonos, which means it allows the person, the lady, to be able to eat kachim, you don't need her to make her husband as a messenger. It can be brought without her knowledge. Shekain oda maybe carbon alishtoi shaita. A man can bring a carbon on behalf of his wife, who's a shaita. Kediv Rabbi Yehuda, like Rabbi Yehuda explained. The Tanya we learned in the Brisa, Rabbi Yehuda said that after a man divorces his wife, then he has no responsibility to bring her carbonos. Alda maybe carbon ishtal, Alda maybe carbon ashal ishtoi, the whole carbonish chiyavis. A man is required to fulfill the obligations that his wife has to bring carbonos. Shekaf kosevloch, that it's written, b'achrayas the islech alay min kadamas dena, that the responsibility that when we're divorced, she's writing to him that once we're divorced, you don't have to take on the responsibility of bringing my karbanos. But as long as we're not divorced, then he has an obligation to bring her karbanos. So if she's an insane woman, the husband still would have the responsibility to bring the yoledes karbanos, which enables his wife to eat kachim, even though she's not making a mashliach. So those type of karbanos, back into our Mishnah, are the ones the kohen, Reuven, is allowed to sacrifice to act as the kohen on behalf of Shimon, because Shimon does not have to make Reuven as a messenger. But it could be on a regular karban. Since our Mishnah doesn't use regular examples, our Mishnah does not say that Reuven could makriv any carbon on behalf of Shimon, because it could be that the kohen needs to be appointed as a messenger of the person who's bringing the carbon. And since Shimon is bringing the carbon, he would not be able to appoint Reuven as a messenger because he's prohibited from benefiting from Reuven. So maybe our Mishnah holds Kahanim ashluchim dedan. Now the messengers are our messengers and not the messengers of heaven. Okay, we'll continue this conversation tomorrow, Bez Hashem.